Okay, once again, welcome to ITSE 2309. This is chapter 11. Now this kind of deviates a little bit from what we've been talking about so far. And this deals more with the actual code that you have written. One of the things that happens on the onset of when you're doing this database process is, what you want to do is you want to get the thing working first. So you want to make sure this thing's working and everyone's happy with it, then you're going to fine tune it. So what we're going to look at is how, after something is up and running, how you can fine tune the mechanism. So what we're going to look at is the process of looking at the code, the actual SQL code after it's been written. Remember that you're trying to keep the customer happy. You're also trying to minimize the resources that are being used. And a good example will be, you have location 1, you have location 2, you have location 3, and all of these share the same data source. Okay? So you have 3 locations and they all share the data source. Now what you want to do is you want to minimize the amount of time it takes to extract data, because the faster you can extract data, the happier the customer client is going to be, and the amount of time that you're using to stress the whole operation is minimized. So sometimes the old process was you would do an if-then statement. Well, maybe you can use a different process to accomplish this, a case or an else if. What other mechanism exists that will allow you to optimize? Also, one of the interesting things is that if you have a network that's involved, sometimes you are limited by the speed of the network. And if there are many people using the network, it may be prudent to break the query down into smaller pieces that you can manage within this process. Instead of sending one big chunk that's going to take longer to respond because of the network traffic, it may be easier to break the big query into smaller queries and then manage it that way. So we're going to look at how you can run a query and have the information come back in the least amount of time. Now there are some third-party products out there that will optimize. There's also some items within Oracle and SQL that will tell you how long a query is taking to come back. There's a optimizer process that you can look into that will tell you it's taking you so many seconds or minutes to get this process done. And then you can look at the code. One of the reasons this is so critical is when I was employed at one time, I would get reports on how much CPU time the queries we were using were taking. And I would get billed for the amount of computer time I was using. Well, okay. So we were always looking for a way to pay less. And we would look at these queries to see, okay, how long is it taking us to do this query? And do we really need that information? Is there any way we can trim this stuff so we don't have to pay for the amount of computer time we're using? So yes, there is a cost-effect process that managers look at. And in the process I was involved with was that we were amortizing a large computer system and we were being billed for the amount of CPU time we were having. So we were always looking for a way to trim expenses, and we were looking at all our queries and is this query necessary? Do we have to do this? So you start looking at, yes, it's working, but do we need all the whistles and bells we have? Can we cut back to be more efficient? And that is the process that Chapter 11 talks about, on how you look at a query, how you look at how long it's running, can you trim it, how you do this. And one of the easiest things is after things have been running for a while, you develop usage patterns. You know that a certain user does a lot of computer time and you have another user that does not use a lot of computer time. So maybe you can better manage how things are working and give this guy more space or how you do it. Spend your resources where you need it. So if you have one user that doesn't use a lot of computer time and you have another user that's using a lot of CPU time, you may want to spend your efforts in fine-tuning those queries, those mechanisms that one particular user is doing to kind of tailor back the expenses. And the easiest thing to do is called indexing. Understand that data is collected over time. Let's take a doctor's office. The doctor's office has been open for 10 years. So he has 10 years worth of patient history. But you don't find a patient in a time frame that he became a patient. You collect the information over time, but then you organize it. You sort it by last name, first name. So the other thing you look at is maybe you start looking at all these queries and all the data that people are extracting, and you find that these people are hitting these particular tables all the time. Maybe if we go back and we index that process to make the process more efficient, we'll burn up less computer time. So what you start doing, you start looking at the whole operation, find out who's using what, and you start addressing resources to those areas to maybe if we do an index for this individual, or how can we tailor the process for this group of users or user that will use less CPU time to make it more efficient. And we'll look at this process. Also, maybe, okay, example. You're going to do some work, you got to haul some dirt. So the question is, you got to go out and rent a pickup truck. Now, so the question is, do you rent a little Ford Ranger that has a quarter-ton little pickup, or do you rent an 18-wheeler, or do you rent a dump truck, or do you rent a 250? What tool is the appropriate tool to get the job done? Initially, when you create this, you have no idea what the workload is going to be sometimes. So you put something together with an understanding, with an expectation of how much work is going to be done. But then after this process and service, you may find out that, well, I need something bigger or I need something smaller. And that's how you start fine-tuning this process. Make sure that you have the appropriate tool that will manage the task at hand. And that basically concludes Chapter 11.